Hello students, in this video we are going to revise our unit test 2 syllabus, that is chapter number 1 to chapter number 4, class 7, subject science, NCERT. So here in this revision we will study the summary of all these 4 chapter that will be asked in your unit test 2. So now let me start with the first chapter. The chapter number 1 is nutrition in plants. So in this chapter we had seen that all living organisms require food and utilize this food to obtain energy, to grow and to repair the damaged part of their bodies. Why we are taking the food is we had seen first. So we are taking this food to utilize this food to get the energy, to grow, to repair the damaged part of our bodies. So this is why we are taking the food. Then after we had seen what is nutrition. So the process of taking food by organisms and its utilization in our body is called nutrition. This process is known as the nutrition. So the process of taking food and utilization of this food to get the energy, to grow, to repair the damaged part. So this process is known as the nutrition. And there are mainly two types of nutrition we had seen, that is autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. In that first one we had seen what is autotrophic nutrition. So the organisms make their food by themselves from simple substance is called autotrophic nutrition. The organisms which can make their food by their own self, so this kind of nutrition is known as the autotrophic nutrition. And then after we had seen heterotrophic nutrition. So the animals and most other animals take ready-made food from the other organisms. Like we human being, we are not making our own food, we are taking the food ready-made from the other organisms, that is either from plants or from animals. So is known as the heterotrophic nutrition. This type of nutrition is known as the heterotrophic nutrition. Then after we had seen photosynthesis process. So a process of synthesis of food occurring in the leaves of the plants is called photosynthesis. The process of making food in the leaves of the plants, so this process is known as the photosynthesis, and for this photosynthesis process the plants require sunlight, chlorophyll, carbon dioxide and water. So for the process of photosynthesis, sunlight, chlorophyll, carbon dioxide and water are essential. And then after we had seen some other methods of nutrition in plants. So there are parasitic nutrition, insectivorous nutrition and saprotrophic nutrition. So in that first one we had seen in Cuscuta or amarbel is a parasitic plant which depends on the other plants. So this kind of nutrition is known as the parasitic nutrition. Then we had seen Nepthanes or pitcher plants is an insectivorous plant and it depends or it feed on the insects. So this kind of nutrition is known as the insectivorous nutrition. And mushroom and other fungi are saprophytic plants. They are taking their food from the decaying matters. So this kind of plants are known as the saprophytic plants. Then after we had seen what is symbiosis. So some organisms live together and share shelter and nutrients. This kind of interrelation is called symbiosis. Some organisms they are living together and for that they are sharing shelter and nutrients to each other. In that one organism provides shelter and the another organism provide nutrients. So this kind of interrelation between these two organisms is called symbiosis. Then we had seen one example of this symbiotic relationship, that is lichens. So lichen is symbiotic relation of algae and fungus. In this lichens or in this relation, the fungus provides shelter, water and minerals to the algae, and in return algae provides food which is prepared by photosynthesis. In this relation, the fungi and algae are involved, and fungi or fungus provide shelter, water and minerals to the algae, and in return, as the fungus do not have the chlorophyll, so they cannot make their own food, so algae provides the food to the fungus. By the process of photosynthesis, it prepares its own food. So both benefits in their symbiotic relation, they are sharing something, so this kind of relation is known as the symbiotic relation. Next, we had seen that pulses such as grain, gram, peas, bean, moong, etc. are plants of legume family. So the rhizobium bacteria inhabit or they are living in their roots. So this rhizobium bacteria can take atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into the soluble form. Thus it provides nitrogen supply to the leguminous plants, and in return the leguminous plants provide food and shelter to the rhizobium bacteria. So here the relation between leguminous plants and rhizobium bacteria is also called the symbiotic relation. Here the one another example is also there, and this relation is of great significance for the farmers. That is between the bacteria, that is rhizobium bacteria, and leguminous plants. The leguminous plants, that means pulses like gram, peas, beans and moongs. These plants have the rhizobium bacteria at their root nodules. So this rhizobium bacteria can fix the atmospheric nitrogen into the soil. So they provide this nitrogen to these leguminous plants, and in the return these leguminous plants provide shelter, that means space to live, and food to this rhizobium bacteria. So this is the symbiotic relation between rhizobium bacteria and leguminous plants, and this relation is the great significance, or it has the importance for the farmers, as by this relation the nitrogen, that is atmospheric nitrogen, get fixed into the soil, so which is beneficial for the farmers. So these are the things we had seen in the first chapter, that is nutrition in the plants. Now next chapter, chapter number 2, is nutrition in animals. So in this chapter we had seen that animal nutrition includes nutrient requirement, mode of intake of food and its utilization in our body. What animal nutrients include, that means what is the requirement of these nutrients, how we are taking this food, and how we are utilizing this food in our body. So this all process includes in one, that is animal nutrition. The components of food such as carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, etc. are complex substances, and these complex substances cannot be utilized directly. So it is necessary to convert them into simpler substance. As we are getting carbohydrates, lipids or fats, proteins from the food, but these are the complex substance and we cannot directly use this substance in our body for the growth and maintenance of our body. So first we have to convert this into the simpler substance. So the conversion of these complex components of food into the simpler substance is called digestion. This process is known as the digestion, and various mode of feeding are also there, that is scraping, chewing, siphoning, capturing, sucking and swallowing, etc. These are the different methods by which we are taking the food, or by which the animals, different kinds of animals are taking the food, or intaken method for the food. The human, then after we had seen that what is human digestive systems and what are the different parts of this system. So the human digestive systems consist of the alimentary canal and secretory glands, and it also consists of buccal cavity, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, which is ending at the rectum, and at the end it is the anus. So these are the different components or the different parts of this alimentary canal of the human digestive system. Then after we had seen how we are digesting the food. So the main digestive glands are the salivary glands, liver and pancreas, which secrete saliva, bile and pancreatic juices respectively. These are the digestive glands which are present in our alimentary canal, that is salivary gland, liver and pancreas, and they are secreting or releasing the different juices, that is saliva, bile and pancreatic juices, which helps in the digestion of the food in our body. The inner wall of the stomach and the small intestine secrete the digestive juices, namely gastric juice and intestinal juice respectively. The inner wall of our stomach secretes the digestive juice, which is also known as the gastric juice, and the small intestine secrete the intestinal juice. Then after we had seen nutrition is the process which involves the other processes also, and in which it involves the complex processes like ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation and egestion. So in human, partial digestion of carbohydrates in buccal cavity starts, and the partial digestion of proteins in stomach and the digestion of carbohydrates, proteins and lipids are completed in the small intestine. The partial digestion of carbohydrates starts in the buccal cavity, then after partial digestion of proteins in the stomach and the digestion of these carbohydrates, proteins and lipids are completed in the small intestine. And by the complete digestion, carbohydrates into glucose, fats into fatty acids, and glycerol and proteins get converted into amino acids. So these are the simpler forms, and the conversion of the complex forms into the simpler substance, that carbohydrates converted into glucose, fats into fatty acids, glycerol and protein it converts into amino acids. Then after we had also seen that herbivores, that which is also known as the ruminants, like cow, so they quickly ingest and swallow grass and store it in a part of stomach, which is also known as the rumen, and later the food returns to the mouth from rumen and the animal chew it again. So this process is known as the rumination. Herbivores like cow, we had seen cow and buffaloes, this kind of process is there, which is also known as the rumination. Then we had seen the mode of feeding in amoeba. So amoeba is an unicellular microscopic organism which we can see with the help of microscope only. It ingests or intake its food with the help of false feed, that is also known as the pseudopodia, and this food is digested in the food vacuoles. The undigested food then after, or the residue, is thrown out by this vacuole. So this is how the process of ingestion or digestion is there in the different animals. So these are the things we had seen in the chapter number 2, that is nutrition in the animals. Now next chapter is chapter number 3, that is fiber to fabric. So in this chapter we had seen that wool and silk are animal fibers. So now then after we had seen from what we are getting the wool and silk. So wool is obtained from the hair of sheep, goat, yak and camel, and some breeds of sheep possesses only fine, that means thin, soft underhair that is close to the skin. And so the process of the selecting parents of for the obtaining special characteristics in their offsprings or in their childs possessing soft hair is termed as the selective breeding. The process of selecting the parents to get the benefits or to get the special characteristics, in this case of wool, to select or to get the fine, thin or soft hairs is termed as the or is known as the selective breeding. Yak wool is common. Then after we had seen the wool which we are getting from the different animals. So yak wool is common in Tibet and Ladakh, whereas Angora wool is obtained from the Angora goats, which is found mainly in the hilly regions such as Jammu and Kashmir. And the underfur of this Kashmiri goat is soft and it is used to prepare pashmina shawls, which is very famous shawls of Jammu and Kashmir. Then after we had seen llama and alpaca. These are the also animals of South America, and also people are getting wool or they are yielding the wool from these animals, that is llama and alpaca. Next we had seen that some Indian breeds of sheep are Lohi, Rampur Busher, Nali, Pakharwal, Marwari and Patanwadi. So these are the different breeds of the sheep of our country, and these are also giving the good wool. Then after we had seen how we can get the wool. So the processing fibers into wool involves main 6 steps, that is shearing, scoring, sorting, drying, dyeing and spinning. So these are the process for to get the wool from the fibers, and in the chapter we had seen this process, all the processes in detail. So this is all about wool. Then after next we had seen next fiber, that is silk. So silkworms spin the silk fibers, and the rearing of silkworms for obtaining the silk is called sericulture. We are getting the silk from the silkworms, and the rearing of the silkworms to get only for the silk. So this is known as the sericulture. And there are mainly 4 stages in the life cycle of silkworm, that is egg, caterpillar, or you can also know this stage by the larva. Then after next stage is pupa, and last one is silk moth. And we had seen how we can get the silk from this silkworm after this all different stages. Then we had seen that caterpillar grows on the mulberry tree and enter in the next stage of its life history called pupa, and it weaves a net to hold itself. Then it swings its head from side to side in the form of figure 8. Here it is shown to you in the figure of this. It swings its head, and during this movement of the head, the caterpillar secretes the fibers made up of protein, which hardens on exposure to air and becomes silk fiber. During this movement, it secretes or it releases some fibers, and these fibers are made up of protein. When it gets exposure to air, so it becomes at that time hard, and at the end we can get the silk fiber. So the silk fiber are used for weaving silk cloth, and there is a variety of silk moths are also there, and the silk yarn they yield is different in the texture. As the wool, we are getting different kinds of wool from different animals, so same as that there are also variety of silk moths, and the silk we are getting is also different from the different silk moths. Tussar silk, Muga silk, Kosa silk, etc. are obtained from the cocoons spun by the different types of moths. So these are the different types of silk which we are getting from the different silkworms. The most common silk moth is the mulberry silk moth, and the culture of silkworms is very old occupation in India, and India produces plenty of silk on a commercial scale. India produces large amount or it produces silk on the large amount on the commercial scale. So this is all about silk and wool, that is how we are getting this fabric from the fiber. This we had seen in the chapter number 3, that is fiber to fabric. Our next chapter is chapter number 4. The name is heat. So now let me see the summary or the points to remember in this chapter. So in this chapter we had seen that The degree of hotness or coldness of any object is called its temperature. And whether any object is hot or cold, we can see it by its temperature, or it is known by its temperature. And then after we had seen how we can increase or decrease the temperature of any substance. So the temperature of a substance increases on giving heat to that substance, and the temperature of a substance decreases on absorbing heat from that substance. This is how we can increase or decrease the temperature of any substance. Then we had seen about the instrument which is used to measure the temperature of different objects. So the instrument to use the temperature to measure the temperature of any object is called the thermometer. So we had seen different types of thermometer. So the thermometer that measures our body temperature is called clinical thermometer or doctor's thermometer. The thermometer which is used to measure the temperature of our body is known as the clinical thermometer or doctor's thermometer. And this clinical thermometer can measure the temperature from 35 degrees Celsius to 42 degrees Celsius, and in Fahrenheit scale it can measure from 94 degree Fahrenheit to 108 degree Fahrenheit. This is the other unit to measure the temperature, that is degree Fahrenheit. Then we had seen what is the normal temperature of the human body. So the normal temperature of the human body is 37 degrees Celsius, and in the Fahrenheit scale it is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. So this is about clinical thermometer. Next we had seen laboratory thermometer. So the thermometer which is used in laboratory is known as the laboratory thermometer, and the range of this kind of thermometer is usually from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. This is laboratory thermometer. Then we had seen maximum minimum thermometer. So the thermometer which is used to measure the maximum and the minimum temperature of the day is known as the maximum minimum thermometer. Then we had seen that in clinical thermometer there is a kink-like structure, or you can say also constriction is there near the bulb of mercury, and this kink or constriction prevents the mercury level from falling down on its own self. So because of this we can even measure the temperature of our body with the help of clinical thermometer after removing it from our mouth. So this is the reason we can measure the temperature like this. Then we had seen what transfer of heat and different modes of transfer of heat. So the heat flows from a body at a higher temperature to a body which is at the lower temperature. Heat transfer from the body which is at the higher temperature to the body which is at the lower temperature, and that is why hot tea becomes cold due to the flowing of heat from the tea to the atmosphere. So the transfer of heat take place over there, and on heating one end of an aluminium rod with the flame of a candle, this heat flows from its nearer end to the far off end. So here also the heat transfer take place. So the process of transfer of heat from the hot end of a solid object towards the cold end is known as the conduction. So this is the first mode of transfer of heat, that is conduction, and in the solids objects the heat transfer take place by this mode of transfer of heat, that is conduction. The solid substance like metals become hot due to this process of conduction. Then next we had seen good conductors of heat and poor conductors of heat. So the substance through which conduction of heat take place easily are called good conductors of heat. Like metals like copper, silver, aluminium, iron, etc. are good conductors of heat. Then we had seen poor conductors of heat or insulators. So the materials which do not allow heat to pass through them easily are called poor conductors of heat or insulators. Like wood, plastic, ebonite, leather, wool, glass, rubber, etc. are poor conductors of heat. Then we had seen next second mode of transfer of heat. So on heating the vessel which contains water, the water gets heated in the vessel, and this mode of heat transfer in water is known as the convection. The second mode of transfer of heat. Liquid and gaseous substance get heated by this mode of transfer of heat called convection, but there is one exception case with the mercury. Mercury is the liquid even though it gets heated by the mode of transfer of heat called conduction. So this is the convection. Now here one use of this mode of transfer of heat is there in practical life, that in coastal region sea breeze during the daytime and land breeze during the night time occur due to this convection mode of heat of transfer of heat. The next mode of transfer of heat is radiation. So from the sun, heat comes to us by the process known as the radiation. So this transfer of heat by the radiation does not require any medium. So this is three different modes of transfer of heat. Then after we had seen some phenomena about dark color objects and light color objects. So dark color objects absorb radiation better than the light color objects, and this is the reason why we feel more comfortable in the light color objects or in the light color clothes in the summer season, because it absorbs less radiation as compared to the dark color objects. Then we had seen that woolen clothes keep us warm during the winter season. It is because wool is a poor conductor of heat and it has air trap in between the fibers of wool. So we can feel warm during the winter season. And normally the heat is more absorbed by black color object, as we had seen dark color object. So it absorbed more by the black objects as compared to the light color object, that is white objects. So these are the things we had seen in our chapter number 4, that is heat. So for unit test 2 you have to prepare this all chapter 4 chapter, that is chapter 1 to 4. The short exercise, that is MCQs, fill in the blanks, true false, answer in one word. This exercise or the MCQs from this exercise can be asked. So you have to prepare all this short exercise from this all chapter in your unit test. Thank you.